Welcome to Topsail Insider, where you can hear all about the businesses and events in the beautiful coastal towns in the greater Topsail area of North Carolina. Welcome back to Topsail Insider for part 2 of my interview with Richard Stroop. In part 1, we discussed his saltwater properties on Topsail Island. Now, let's move on to our conversation about the Hive, which is his boutique hotel in downtown Wilmington, as well as his venture capital firm, Cape Fear Ventures. So for a man that sort of fell into the hospitality arena like we talked about earlier, you bought, renovated, and eventually sold the Loggerhead Inn on Topsail Island, and then you decided to build the 2 saltwater properties. And now you purchased the Hive in Wilmington, and I'd say you're pretty deep into the hospitality industry now. Did you see that coming?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And I think after the last 4 or 5 months, it hasn't been quite so enjoyable, but I do hope that turns around for you. Let's talk about the Hive. This is a boutique hotel. How many units in that?
The Hive has 15 units.
15.
Yeah.
I haven't been there in person, and I do want to get there very soon. It reminds me of these really cool, hip, trendy hotels I would see in Los Angeles or New York, or there's some in Palm Springs even that are so cute. They're very boutique, and they're not kitschy. You've got the Wilmington elements there. So you've got like the exposed brick walls and things like that. First of all, you didn't build this one. It was already built. It's been there for quite some time. How did you get involved with this property?
Sure. So the original developers of that property, Mr. Robert Rosenberg and Kaylee O'Connor, actually visited me back in 2022 whenever I finished the first saltwater project to get some ideas on a new concept that they were considering in Carolina Beach. So I read about them, and I reached out to Kaylee on LinkedIn and said, hey, we're in the same industry. I'm really interested in learning about your Carolina Beach project. Would be happy to show you what we're doing here in Surf City. So they actually came down in October of 22, met me, and I spent the day with them and showed them 605, showed them our blueprints, and went through each room, showed how we built them, and gave them some concepts. And they really enjoyed it. Took them out to lunch to New York Deli and had a good time. And so to reciprocate, they invited me to see their little boutique hotel called the Hive in Wilmington, which I was very impressed with. Matter of fact, when I went to their website, the design of the website and the layout motivated me to redo the website that Saltwater had. So,
oh, really?
So we used a lot of concepts of the Hive website into the new Saltwater website. And sadly, Mr. Rosenberg unexpectedly passed away early in 23. And I didn't really hear about that until kind of April, May of 23. And I was looking at something and I saw that Kaylee had posted something on LinkedIn. And I reached out to her and she told me what had happened. And I, obviously felt really awful and apologized. Apparently, after some time, the family decided to sell the property. And I reconnected with Kaylee in the fall last year. And she was telling me about their decision to sell the property. So, of course, I started asking some questions. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Who is it on the market? Well, originally it wasn't on the market. They were, trying to sell it off market, but they had hired a broker and was going through that process. So yeah, one thing led to another, and I submitted an offer the best I could. Again, strongly emphasizing that I was going to honor Robert's legacy and keep everything he did the same. I didn't want to change a thing. I felt like the work that he and Kaylee did with the Hive was beautiful. It was unique. I read the reviews. A lot of people really enjoy that space. And obviously, Kaylee told me that they had built some unique networks in the movie industry. So a lot of people that film.
Oh, I could see that
in
for
Wilmington
sure. Yeah.
Stay there, they're long term, like 2-3 months, whatever. And then since it's so close to Live Oak Pavilion, I mean, it's basically 2 blocks away, a lot of the performers stay there because it's convenient.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it provides, from a security point of view, you don't go through a lobby. There's an access in the backside where you can get in and out as you go.
Okay.
And it's more private. And I think a lot of people really enjoy that.
It's the same concept booking. It's QR codes and keypads.
Yeah. So they were utilizing similar technology, different platforms than we use.
Okay.
So part of my offer, which required financing, so we did work with a financing provider in Wilmington. Part of the idea, I guess the pitch, was that we were going to incorporate the Hive into the same systems that we were using for saltwater. So that's one of the major upgrades that I did. I ripped out all the security cameras. We put in all brand new security cameras. I actually expanded the security cameras. They only had 4 at the time, and now we have 8. So every inch of that property is now surveillanced. We changed all the door locks. So we now use the same door lock system that we use here in Saltwater. We have a new website. The website utilizes the same back office system that we use for Saltwater. So there's a lot of synergies between the two.
Yeah.
So now Saltwater customers are getting updates, information about the Hive, and the Hive customers are getting updates about Saltwater.
Nice.
So it was a good idea to add that property into the system that we created. So eventually, if we do add other properties into the same system, right, then they can all work together, cross-pollinate, I guess you could say. Yeah.
So you are in it. You're in the hospitality, and you just mentioned if there's another one. So I just feel like this is your path now.
Before Loggerhead and Saltwater, I actually started with 2 student housing complexes in Boone.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I still have those, but I never had the desire to branch into hospitality. I mean, really, it's just by chance the Loggerhead thing kind of worked its way, and here we are. And to be honest with you, when I sold Loggerhead, in the middle of constructing 412, because I had to.
Yeah.
So I did sell Loggerhead in 23. I used the proceeds of that to fund 412. And by the time some of my other investments caught up to where I didn't have to sell Loggerhead, I regretted selling it because I had seller remorse because I love Loggerhead, just the brand, the nostalgia, and it's a great cash flow producing property. And I felt a void, like, oh man, I wish I really would have had that. So when the Hive came open, I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So one door closes, another one opens. So I was able to buy the Hive and put it under the same system. So now I feel like I'm completed again.
So what about future plans? Are there any other changes that you're going to make to the Hive? You've updated the security, the keypads and such. What else might you be doing to the Hive?
Yeah, nothing major outside of the security and the cameras. We did upgrade the internet and the Wi-Fi. We put in new Wi-Fi repeaters and modems and things. So I just wanted to get all new equipment. But that's it. And also, they were renting some exercise equipment, which I got rid of. And I just bought some new stuff.
I love the fact that it's just so different from your beach properties. Like it's really got that urban feel.
Yeah, it's very unique. And I love downtown Wilmington, because it does have that urban feel, and the Hive definitely incorporates that brick wall.
Yeah,
and
even the decor too. Like the decor really speaks to that urban, eclectic.
Yeah,
every artist feel.
Yeah, every room is unique. And that,
really?
Yeah. So the interior decorator they hired, I can't think of her name, but she purposely had a different theme for every room.
That's so cool.
She and Robert really did a fantastic job putting that together. The artwork is different.
Yeah.
The layout's different. The furniture's different. You just walk in and feel like you're in a different spot. So that's a very interesting and unique perspective for a boutique hospitality.
Hey, if you thought it couldn't get any better than Saltwater Suites, well, I have some exciting news. I am thrilled to announce the grand opening of the new Saltwater Resort this May in the heart of Surf City, North Carolina. Saltwater Resort will absolutely redefine hospitality, creating a truly elevated vacation experience. All 24 suites offer opulent bedding, full-size washers and dryers, and well-appointed kitchens equipped with dining tables and dishwashers. And now you can relax and enjoy their beautiful saltwater pool. Are you ready to elevate your next Topsail adventure? Reserve your stay at saltwatertopsail.com or call 910-886-4818. Saltwater Resort, where luxury meets the waves and every moment is a celebration. Hey Insiders, if you haven't tried Surf City Line, what are you waiting for? Chef Jay has created amazing made-from-scratch beach-in bowls, delicious peel-and-eat shrimp by the pound, wings, salads, and more. And they have a wonderful multi-level deck for listening to live music, soaking up the sun, and enjoying food, drinks, and some of the best service on Topsail Island. Follow Surf City Line on Facebook and Instagram, where you'll find their lineup for all of their live entertainment. Feel like walking off that delicious food before heading home? Well, take their walkway right to the ocean for a quick stroll on the beach. They have plenty of parking right next to the restaurant and a large lot across the street. They're located at 2112 North New River Drive, where Surf City meets North Topsail. I'll see you at Surf City Line. Okay, I'm going to give out the contact information for the Hive. It is located at 505 North 2nd Street in Wilmington, North Carolina. The phone number there is 910-616-6097, and you can book online at hivewilmington.com. This property is also managed by Blue Star Real Estate, and I will have their socials up in the show notes for you, clickable and hot as well. Moving away from hospitality now, you are also an investor. How did you get started investing?
Yes. So long before I started a career in technology and now pivoting into real estate, my first passion really was investing. So growing up in the 80s, I'd always had some type of interest in the stock market for reasons I really don't understand. Even at an early age, I remember always choosing to read business models or use business models for research projects in school. So maybe it was from watching the movie Wall Street and seeing the pop culture of that time. But growing up, I really wanted to work as a stockbroker. If you ask me as
oh my gosh, that's the strangest.
Or middle school, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I was always like, stockbroker.
Where did that come from? You don't know where it came from. No. Your parents were not.
No.
Oh, that's so crazy.
No, I grew up in a blue collar family environment, very hardworking, very entrepreneurial. My grandparents had owned their own unique set businesses, and my dad started his own trucking business at one point, and my mom was in retail. So no, I wanted to be a stockbroker. I don't understand why. Maybe it was the energy, because you watch these movies like Trading Places and you see them shaking their hands on the floor.
Yeah, totally.
Very aggressive. Again, it must be the aggressive aspect, but I felt like I was drawn to that industry for some reason. Yeah, so even as a kid, I wanted to invest in stocks because I was reading the business section of the newspaper and watching all these things happen. But back then, commissions were very expensive, and I really didn't have the opportunity to buy stocks until I had my real first job out of college, which I was living in an apartment in Fairfax, Virginia, and I devoted about 40% of my income towards investing.
Oh my gosh.
I can still remember buying shares of Microsoft for under $20. And I can remember buying Amazon and Oracle for under $5. And I did buy other things that went out of business. Redback Networks, which I think was out of Raleigh. Yeah, there was a lot of switches and gears and networks. Again, back in the late 90s. It was right before the big, I guess, tech crash. You know, it was a lot of frenzy, a lot of passion, a lot of psychology. And maybe that's what draws me into it, because it's the intersection of business models and earnings and psychology. That's investing, because you kind of mix everything together. And then if you can really learn how people invest and what their emotional draw is to these things, that has something to do with it.
So Microsoft, you said you remember buying Microsoft under 5?
Under 20.
Under 20.
It was crazy. It was in his 20s for the longest time. Like Microsoft was a dead stock for a very long time.
What about Apple? Did you grab any Apple?
I never bought Apple. Yeah. I wasn't a Mac guy.
You were a PC guy.
I was a PC guy until, I don't know, in maybe around 2010.
You switched over?
I switched, yeah. Well, no, when did the iPhone come out? 2006, I think.
Yeah, I think the iPhone switched a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, my first phone was an Android, so, I mean, it took me a while to come through the whole Apple ecosystem, but it has me now. Like I'm fully Mac.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm all in.
A lot of folks, including myself, we don't deal with and we don't know how venture capital works. Can you break it down for us?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
So if you fast forward to 2009, after my first business exit, I had some time on my hands. So I was fortunate to have the opportunity to expand my investment passion that I had and learn the ropes of venture capital investing from some excellent people at Blue Venture Investors. They're based out of Tysons Corner, Virginia. So these are a bunch of guys that are CEOs or exited owners of businesses that have capital, and they will be considered angel investors. So these are people that invest their own money into private startup companies that have a lot of potential. So as opposed to investing in public stocks like Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft, venture capital is a form of private equity financing that provides funding to startups or early stage companies that are using disruptive technology to either take down a current incumbent that's not using that technology or being innovative, or they're going to create a brand new market.
So you own Cape Fear Ventures. This is your company. Can you explain your approach at Cape Fear and what makes you different from other investors?
So given my background in technology, I've always been interested in looking into the disruption around today's innovation areas, which include artificial intelligence, data science, software, and space exploration. My son got me invested in space. So with Cape Fear Ventures, it's a new fund that I created that has a unique approach that extends beyond just capital. I invest my time and experience with these companies and founders. This involves deep, engaging conversations with the team, the founder, the CEO, the management team, and really spending a considerable amount of time getting to know them and their families, because running companies is a very personal decision. I mean, this is time away from your family, time away from doing things that you enjoy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of stress. So I want to take the time to really understand what makes them tick and what drives them and what are their goals. So it goes beyond building business models. Really, it's about building their characters and supporting their networks and their lives. It's about helping them become the type of person who can handle a scaling company, but at the same time, the psychological impact around that. And I think overall, it helps me become a better advisor, investor, and also a better friend.
So you're not just putting in the money, you're mentoring them.
Correct. It's a combination of capital investment and mentorship.
Okay.
There's a lot of funds that utilize a different model, which I kind of coined spray and pray. Since
spray and pray.
There's a lot of startups. So they put seed funding. Let's say they put $10,000 in 20 different companies. One of them is probably bound to pop and return a 10x or 20x. So that's like investment thesis. Whereas I take my time and I'm very methodical, really understand the business model and the capture process and the people involved and the backgrounds and how much money they're paying their team and where do they live and what are their personalities. So I think if you spend a little more time and be very unique about how you place your money and your time, for me, I get a better return. And that's been at least a positive aspect for me personally and for financially.
What is your typical investment size?
The size of investments really hinge on various factors, including the company size, the operational burn rate, the intellectual property portfolio. Do they have a patent or things like that? Their customer acquisition strategies. For example, how much does it cost to acquire one customer? And their pipeline. So in the past, the investment ranges varied widely, typically anywhere between 5 and 6 figures.
You've invested in a company down in Wilmington. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about this company and what you saw in them, actually how you even found them in the first place,
right?
And what you saw in them that made you want to put your money in that business?
Right. So I happened to run across an article in the Raleigh Business Journal that was discussing Ohanify as a new startup out of Wilmington and how they were launching a new concept to disrupt the beverage industry. So I was intrigued. So I reached out to one of the co-founders that was mentioned in the article on LinkedIn again, And I said, hey, would it be possible to set up a meeting to learn, well, first to meet you and to learn more about your business model? And if you're up to it, I'd love to see a demo of your technology.
Were they looking for an investor?
No, not at all. I mean, this is out of the blue. And I did explain who I was and my background and said, hey, I'm here to help. I'm just a fan. Love to see your tech, and then go from there. So yeah, so after the first meeting, which was 2.5 hours, and the demo, I was completely blown away. The technology they had built was very deep and complex. And I knew that it had the capability of scaling dramatically because they were only focused on the beverage industry at the time. I felt like this software could help other industries, such as government. The government have same issues that the beverage industry.
Interesting.
Chemicals, distributors.
Yeah.
If you think about all these industries, they do have similar concerns and problems they're trying to fix. So I followed up that meeting, thanking them for their time. And I said, hey, listen, I'm very impressed. And I offered to say, look, tell you what, why don't you tell me your top 5 problems that you're dealing with right now? And if it's okay with you, let's get the entire team together and let's have a whiteboard session because I love what you're doing and I really want to help you. And worst case, take my advice and say, thank you very much. Have a nice day. I didn't care. I felt compelled to say, look, I know what you're doing. I have been there before. I've seen the same issues in other investments that I have, and I'd love to tell you, articulate the way of how some of these other companies have handled some of these things because scaling a business is very difficult, especially in commercial. And they're like, yeah, sure, that's great.
They were completely receptive.
Yeah. So about a month later, they invited me back and I spent a day with them, a full day at their office in Wilmington. And we did a whiteboard session. All the founders were there, all 5.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So they had done their research on me and they're like, oh yeah, great. This is awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm like, yeah, sure. So they told me their 5 top problems and I gave them some wild suggestions. You know what? Here's out of the box. Here's what I think you should do. Or have you thought about this? Could you do that? So I was just throwing things against the wall. I don't know the first thing about the beverage industry. I don't know some of the problems that they were addressing or because they work with founders about recipes and capture and business processing and all these things. I have no clue, but I do know what it takes to scale a business and from an operating point of view and how to build the building blocks of doing these things. So it took a while. And I thought like after a couple of weeks, I'm like, oh my God, did it go okay? So finally, one guy wrote me back in and he said, hey, do you have time for a call? And I said, sure. And he goes, man, I just want to tell you that we put everything you said into work, into practice, and everything worked.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, of course, the first thing I said.
This was 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Thereabout.
And then I'm like, really? I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, absolutely. He said, this is awesome. Like everything you said was right. And we put those things in motion and it absolutely helped us get over this hump. So I just want to thank you so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And of course he said, what else can you do? I said, well, tell me about this. Tell me about your company structure. What is your goal? What are you trying to do? Are you raising capital? I have dabbled in venture capital a little bit. So then he's like, yeah, we do want to do a friends and family raise because there's a lot of people that want to invest in the company and it's still small. When I first met them, they only had 11 customers.
Tell us what Ohanify does.
Yes, Ohanify provides a cutting edge digital transformation platform designed to enhance supply chain management and democratize access to operational data and facilitate informed decision-making at a large scale. I know that's a mouthful.
Could you say that in layman's terms, please?
Yes. They provide an automated platform that helps owners and management team make better decisions at scale utilizing supply chain automation and artificial intelligence. So they digitize a lot of the information that they work with. So part of the problem is when operators are trying to make decisions, like a beverage company, for example. Let's use Salty Turtle. I'll use them as an example. If Salty Turtle needed analytics. Now, they may do this themselves. I don't know. Yeah. I'm just telling you what Ohanify could do for them. But if they imported their financials, historical, for the last 2 or 3 years, they could find out down to the promotion, down to the SKU label, which beverage performed better on which date, under which promotion, under which constraints, right? So then they can take that information. So for example, if on July 4th, 3 beers sold 80% of that whole week, well, I would probably estimate that they would probably put more emphasis around those 3 beers, right? So now they can cut back on inventory. Instead of spending on beer that won't sell, they can plus up on beer that would sell. So that's just an example, but they're also importing information that helps provide analytics, predictive analytics that can help you predict what sales are going to be in the future based on macro trends.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an artificial, almost a chat GPT moment where you can ask a question and say, what beer is going to produce best in August?
Yeah.
Or what is my foot traffic going to be? It's getting to that level.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it really does. So a lot of these companies, they don't have that capability. It's a lot of power. So think about data science, data analytics. So you're taking your information and now your data is telling you what your business could do, what it has done, and what it can do, and what you should do. So that's really a high level. And of course, all this is built on Salesforce. And if you're not familiar with Salesforce, it is the world's leading operational platform, CRM, customer relationship management. And they're using this.
They partnered with Salesforce?
Well, they built their application on top of Salesforce.
Okay.
So Salesforce is a great partner of theirs. So now we're leaning into Salesforce. So all this information is inside Salesforce systems. Salesforce is very broad and very analytical, and it can provide so much information.
Are they targeting the alcoholic beverage industry? They're working primarily with breweries and distilleries?
Yeah. Initially, they were centered on beverages, which encompasses all the beverage types. But now they're expanding into distribution, which identifies more of a strategic move aimed at boosting both growth, profitability, and operational efficiency for these industries. By leveraging the platform and the AI predictive modeling that they can do, I think Ohanify is really poised to make some significant strides in the future.
Did they have AI when you first started investing in them?
No, that's one of the ideas. When we get together, we throw things against the wall. And obviously AI is huge. And AI today, ever since 2022 and ChatGPT came, because AI has been around forever. It's based off historical paper that dates back 45, 50 years ago. But now that they're building these large language models, LLMs, and there's a training set. So once you train your model, then it can move into more of an operational model where you can ask it questions like you have ChatGPT. But really what's happening now is all these large companies like Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, Google, Microsoft, they all are creating their own large language model to do AI augmentation. So AI augmentation is huge and it's just starting and it's going to really disrupt a lot of industries. And I'm not talking about robotics. We're already seeing robotics. Think about the factories back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
How robotic arms were replacing people.
In car manufacturing.
Yeah, exactly.
Things like that. Yeah.
So now that we've got computer power and now that the chips and the semiconductors have grown to the part where you can now do these large computational decisions at scale, it's changed the ballgame. Like this is a platform shift. Like the mainframe computer was a platform shift that eventually led into PCs and eventually led into your iPhones and smartphones.
Yeah.
They were all derivatives of a computing beast that was started way back by IBM, right? The first big mainframe, football-sized computers.
Crazy.
Now it can fit in your hand.
Yeah.
AI is going to do the same thing. There's core technology around AI, but then there's also the applications that are going to be built on top of AI and the augmentation of business models that'll happen from AI. So it's huge. And I think Ohanify is just beginning to go down this path. And a lot of the customers and feedback that they've run into see the power. Talking to distributors, we have a call this afternoon with one that I hooked them up with. But a lot of these business models have been around forever, and they're looking to decrease cost because cost is rising, and increase operational efficiency, and to increase margins. And the only way to do that is to use technology like this.
How quickly do you look to get your return on investment? With Ohanafi, for instance, like you're investing and you're mentoring them. What happens if you don't see a return on investment quickly enough? Talk to me just about the ROI.
It's a long-term view. It's not a short-term view. So it's a long-term view. So my goal is to invest in these companies at the pre-seed or seed round, meaning very early, getting there, build the building blocks and the concepts, and eventually create the mechanisms to allow them to raise funds in a Series A round or B, that's from a venture point of view, so that they can take that money and scale. So in the beginning of every company's life cycle, it's really about building the learning blocks of really creating the foundation, really absorbing the technology and evolving the models and building out the customer acquisition strategy early. Mm-hmm. Later, once you've defined these aspects, you create that feedback loop where your customer feedback can go back into your product. So you're constantly upgrading and enhancing your offering, but you're doing it at scale. So now you're selling your product at scale. You're penetrating different environments and business sectors, and you're utilizing that feedback loop to improve your product. Once you have that, then you can raise some serious money and devote your energy on just expanding the model. I perform better when I'm early, really building those initial building blocks. Then later, I just put my investments and let it ride, and eventually it grows. Sometimes it doesn't grow. I've made some investments that haven't panned out. You just move on, but that's why I'm very selective. I really tried not to deploy the spray and pray model.
Can you share some of your expertise with us regarding the Wilmington market? Are you looking at other companies down there? What's going on down in Wilmington?
Yeah, I'm incredibly optimistic about the Wilmington market, particularly in terms of technology and emerging startups. Historically, there's been companies like Encino or Live Oak Bank that have disrupted the intersection of finance and technology. Now that the technology sector has advanced and basically lowered the barriers of entry, it's cheaper today to start a company than ever. I do anticipate continued positive growth of startups in the Wilmington area. Moreover, even from a lifestyle perspective, I anticipate more young professionals opting to settle in markets like Wilmington over larger metro areas like DC or Boston, obviously due to the affordability, but also for the quality of life. And honestly, working with Ohanafi, I've been very impressed with the caliber of new software hires coming out of UNC Wilmington and NC State, which they've hired a lot. I know the new Entrepreneurship Center at UNC Wilmington has played a very significant role in nurturing the talent and fostering innovation. So I'm like I said, I'm really impressed with what they're doing.
Pivoting back to Topsail now, what are your thoughts on the real estate development in the Topsail area?
From a Topsail perspective, again, just listening to people and tell me things and talking to the trades and so forth. Obviously, it relies heavily on tourism, if not the number one economic driver of this area. So I think it's imperative that the elected officials undertake a future comprehensive. I know they've created a comprehensive plan around land use, and they've designated certain areas for limited growth and trying to respect the current environment. But it does appear that there are diverging opinions around the future vision of Surf City.
Sure.
So on one hand, there's a faction that's advocating to maintain status quo.
Yeah.
Like they want to preserve things as is, and they don't like change.
Yeah.
And of course, on the other hand, there's a group that is pushing for growth, limited growth, primarily in housing, because I think a lot of people are moving to the area, which has an impact on infrastructure and obviously leading to heightened traffic that people complain about.
Yeah.
So balancing those perspectives is a crucial task for sustaining a path forward. But I think maintaining a growth mindset is crucial in today's economic landscape, because it might be tempting to maintain status quo, and I understand the quality of life aspect, but realistically, people need to acknowledge that expenses inevitably are going to rise over time. Community assets like roads, bridges, infrastructure, water, sewer are going to require maintenance and sometimes expansion over time. So you have to accommodate these things and try to plan for the future. Obviously, no one wants to see their taxes rise. I hate paying taxes. Everybody hates paying taxes. But I think local officials are faced with a challenge of finding new revenue streams to keep pace of growing expenditures like payroll, beach nourishment. You can get state funding for some of these things, but when it comes to running your local business, you got to run the city like a business, and you have to assume and forecast that your expenses are going to rise. So you have to offset some of these expenses with smart growth initiatives and fostering support for new and existing businesses in the community, I think are essential for meeting this challenge. That's above my pay grade. I know there's different things that they could utilize, but I think re-engaging the community, putting out some ideas on certain areas for growth. What are some of the things that people want? Like I've heard people are really hoping to see more restaurants come in this area. In the middle of summer, it's hard to find a table at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So if you don't have reservations or eating at 4:30, then you're not eating till 8. There's no entertainment. I know there's a new bowling alley coming, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I just heard about that.
But I remember years back, a developer was supposed to build a movie theater with a small bowling alley where the current Walmart sits. The guy who was developing that whole business area, his original concept was to put in a movie theater, which we desperately need.
It would be great. Yeah.
We need stuff like that. I don't think there's enough infrastructure to support it. And I think looking down the path, say a 2040 vision, if they put together a 2040 comprehensive plan that included some of these smart growth initiatives, and then put a referendum on the ballot and let people vote for it. Like I said, borrowing money today is cheaper when you think about building assets for the future, because the value of a dollar is always eroding. A dollar, like I said, a dollar tomorrow is worth less than a dollar today. So I do think the city, and especially like Holly Ridge, for example, the gap between Holly Ridge and Surf City, those areas are rich for disruption. So I do hope that they put together some ideas, because I think since we're so heavily situated against tourism, we need to support those businesses and really motivate other people to launch new companies in this area to support the region.
That's a hot topic in our area. There's definitely a push and pull. And I think the Surf City Council is struggling, trying to get everyone to agree on one thing. And it's been really tough. And
you're never going to find a unanimous. I learned this a long time ago. When you're in the boardroom trying to make decisions, you're never going to find unanimous. You can't focus your energy. You got to find consensus. So even though there's a majority that believe a certain direction should happen, there's a minority that doesn't believe it's going to happen. But what you have to do is put in some support mechanisms and say, listen, I understand this isn't exactly what you're looking for. However, here's some things that we can mitigate some of your concerns. Let's put them all on the table. What are people's concerns? How do you address those concerns? How do you find a win-win? Because the more businesses that are created, it generates more tax revenue, So I think the city would be motivated to see additional tax revenue, because we don't want to raise property taxes. We don't want to raise your personal state taxes. Nobody wants to have taxes. So we have to find a way to generate revenue in other areas. And an income tax based on service revenue, like hospitality, like I pay a ton of taxes through Saltwater, and even property taxes, it's all relative. But I just think that the city could utilize and maybe investigate some other metropolitan areas that have faced this challenge. Reach out to other beach communities around the country, because there's one thing for certain: growth is going to continue. Expenses are going to continue. So you got to find a way to balance both.
The website for your company, Cape Fear Ventures, it is capefear.vc. There you can find Richard's portfolio and his contact form. You can fill out there to get more information or reach out to Richard. So before we finish up here, I just wanted to know, what is the one thing that you want the listeners to take away from our conversation today?
Sure. If you're looking for modern hospitality services here in Topsail or downtown Wilmington, please keep us in mind. Also, for individuals or local businesses who would like to use our new event center as a temporary pop-up location or private business function, we are also here to help. And for anyone eager to embark on a new business journey or seeking feedback on a potential venture, let me know. I'm here to help. I'm a huge advocate for entrepreneurship and the growth of our region, and I'm genuinely excited to see more innovation in the future in this area.
Thank you so much, Richard. I gave out the contact information. You can find all of that again in the show notes. I just want to say thank you to the listeners for joining us today. And thank you again, Richard, for being a Topsail Insider sponsor, first of all, but coming back and sitting with me today and giving me this information and talking to us about the new Saltwater Resort and the Hive and also Cape Fear Ventures, and sort of giving us a lesson in capital.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the work. I'm a big fan. I listen to all your podcasts and
awesome.
Generally happy for all the business owners that share their time with you. I think it's very important.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode of Topsail Insider, please show your support by clicking the follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Please also go to topsailinsider.com and join our mailing list by clicking on the Make Me a Topsail Insider button. While you're there, you can click the Send Me a Voicemail button and let me know exactly what you're thinking. Your message just might be on an episode of Topsail Insider. You can email me at Krista@topsailinsider.com or call or text me at 910-800-0111. Thank you for listening and supporting Topsail Insider and our local businesses and nonprofits. These are our neighbors and our friends, and together we build a mighty and a beautiful community I'm super proud to be a part of. I'll see you around Topsail.
Hey guys, it's Leah with Topsail Talk. I explore local businesses, services, people, and activities in Topsail and its surrounding areas, and I post videos about them. You can find and follow Topsail Talk on Facebook and Instagram. You'll never know where we're going to go, but if you try one of my stops, be sure to tell them Topsail Talk sent you.